Hello everyone, and welcome to my BNB For You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It happened on a gray, merciless morning, one that seemed to drain all color from the California sky. The light over Los Angeles was washed out, sterile, almost cruel, as if the heavens themselves had gone cold to what was about to unfold. In the sterile halls of the Women's Correctional Facility on the outskirts of the city, the faint echo of footsteps reverberated through the corridors, each one heavy with dread. Luna Nozawa was gone. The official statement said complications from childbirth, but anyone who knew the tangled, turbulent web of her life understood that nothing surrounding Luna had ever been simple. The guards said she had been weak since labor, that she'd refused to rest, that her body simply couldn't fight any longer. But the moment the news reached the outside world, shockwaves tore through Los Angeles, rippling from the Forrester Mansion to Spencer Publications, from the Cliff House to the small cafe where SHEILA Carter sat with Deacon, staring at her phone in disbelief. Luna Nozawa, the woman who had defied everyone, who had loved recklessly, fought passionately, and carried Will Spencer's unborn child while imprisoned, was dead. And now, her baby, fragile, innocent, and newly born, was at the center of a storm fiercer than anything the Forresters, Logans, or Spencers had seen in years. At the hospital, Finn stood by the nursery window, his eyes locked on the tiny, swaddled infant lying inside the incubator. The baby was barely breathing on her own, a thin tube helping her lungs fight for each precious inhale. Finn's face was pale, his heart thundering against his ribs as guilt clawed its way through him. He had been the one Luna trusted most. He had promised to make sure her child would be safe no matter what. But he had failed to protect her, to save her, and now, he was staring at the last piece of her that remained in this world. She didn't deserve this, he whispered, his voice breaking. His wife, Steffi, stood behind him, her hand pressed against the cold glass, torn between sympathy and anger. She had hated Luna once, resented her for her lies, her manipulations, her connection to the Spencers, but in death, all that hatred melted into something softer. No one deserves to die like that, Steffi murmured, though her tone trembled. But that baby, that child deserves a real chance. And we can't let Bill Spencer get his hands on her. The words hung in the air like a blade. Because while Finn was battling grief and Steffi was struggling to hold her family together, Bill Spencer was already making his move. In his downtown office, the patriarch of the Spencer Empire slammed his fist against the table, his piercing blue eyes flashing with fury. "That baby is my blood," he barked, glaring at his attorney. "She's Will's daughter. That means she's a Spencer, and she belongs with us." Katie, who had been standing quietly in the corner, stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. "Bill, she's not property. She's a newborn. You can't just, I can and I will," he snapped. "Luna's gone, and Will can't raise that child on his own. I won't let her end up in foster care. She's a Spencer heir, and I'll make sure she's raised like one." Katie shook her head, her eyes filled with tears. "This isn't about legacy. This is about doing what's right." But Bill wasn't listening. He was already on the phone, barking orders, calling lawyers, mobilizing his empire to secure custody. News of Luna's death spread fast. Poppy Nozawa, her mother, was inconsolable. When she arrived at the hospital, her screams echoed down the corridor, shattering the sterile calm. "Where is she? Where's my baby?" she cried, her knees giving out as Finn rushed to catch her. "Poppy," he whispered, his own eyes wet. "I'm so sorry. We did everything we could." But Poppy wasn't listening. Her body trembled with rage and grief. "You promised me she'd be safe here. You promised." Finn could barely meet her gaze. He knew she was right. He had promised to oversee Luna's care, to ensure the prison infirmary had everything necessary. But somewhere along the line, bureaucracy, neglect, and tragedy had intertwined, and Luna had paid the price. As nurses wheeled her lifeless body past, covered in a white sheet, Poppy's wail filled the hallway, the sound of a mother's heart breaking beyond repair. That same afternoon, SHEILA Carter appeared at the hospital like a ghost from the past, her dark eyes shimmering with something dangerous, determination disguised as compassion. "Where is she?" she asked softly, and Finn froze at the sound of her voice. "Mom," he said through gritted teeth, "this isn't the time." But SHEILA ignored him. She peered through the nursery window, her gaze falling on the baby. "That's my granddaughter," she whispered, her tone trembling with emotion. "She's family, Finn. And she deserves to be with her family." Finn turned to her, his patience cracking. "SHEILA, you don't get to decide that. You've hurt too many people. You don't get near this child." But SHEILA's eyes darkened, her voice low and cold. "I know what loss feels like, Finn. You think you're the only one who's loved and lost? That baby is innocent, and if you think I'm going to stand by and let the Spencers raise her like a trophy, you're out of your mind." And just like that, the battle lines were drawn. Finn, determined to honor Luna's final wish, that her child be loved and protected by someone who truly cared for her, wanted to take custody himself. Bill Spencer, wielding power, wealth, and the Spencer legacy, wanted to claim her as his family's heir. And SHEILA, ever unpredictable, ever dangerous, saw the baby as a second chance at redemption, or perhaps, control. In the days that followed, Los Angeles became a battlefield of legal petitions, emotional showdowns, and whispered alliances. The courthouse steps turned into a media circus. Headlines screamed, "Spencer, Finnegan, and Carter in custody war." Reporters camped outside the hospital. And behind every headline was a family tearing itself apart. Finn spent sleepless nights pacing the nursery floor, watching over the baby, Luna's daughter, whom the nurses had temporarily named Hope Nozawa. He couldn't look at her without remembering Luna's final words to him, spoken through tears and exhaustion. "Promise me, she'll be safe." He had promised, and now, that promise consumed him. Steffi, though wary, saw how much this fight meant to him. "You can't save everyone, Finn," she said one night, her voice weary. "You already carry so much guilt. Don't let this destroy you." But Finn shook his head. "She's Luna's baby, Steffi. She deserves better than being used as a pawn in a power struggle. If I have to fight Bill Spencer myself, I will." Steffi hesitated, torn between supporting her husband and protecting her own family. "If you do this," she warned, "you'll be going up against Bill, and against your mother. Are you ready for that?" Finn's jaw tightened. "I've faced worse." Meanwhile, Bill was meeting with his attorneys, his frustration mounting. Every time he thought he had the case locked, Finn's medical records and moral arguments swung the pendulum in his favor. "We can't let that doctor take her," Bill growled. "He's a Finnegan. He's not family." But Katie stepped forward, her voice soft but steady. "Maybe family isn't just blood, Bill. Maybe it's the people who love her for who she is, not what she represents." Her words hit him harder than she intended, and for a moment, Bill's mask slipped. Deep down, even he knew that his obsession with legacy was clouding his judgment. But pride was a dangerous thing, and Bill Spencer had too much of it to walk away. SHEILA, meanwhile, was working her own angles. She visited Poppy, offering condolences and comfort, pretending to be an ally. "You and I both know what it's like to lose everything," she said, her voice dripping with sympathy. "But that baby, your granddaughter, she needs someone strong to protect her. Someone who knows what this world is capable of." Poppy looked at her through swollen eyes. "You mean you?" she asked bitterly. SHEILA smiled faintly. "I mean us." It was manipulation dressed as kindness, and for a moment, in her grief, Poppy wanted to believe it. The custody hearing that followed was one of the most dramatic in Los Angeles history. The courtroom was packed, reporters, lawyers, Forresters, Logans, Spencers, all watching as three very different people pleaded their cases. Finn stood tall, his voice steady but emotional. "I made a promise to Luna," he said, looking directly at the judge. "She trusted me with her child's safety. I have the means, the medical background, and the heart to raise her in a stable home. Bill's attorney countered sharply. Dr. Finnegan may mean well, but this baby's heritage matters. She's a Spencer, and she deserves the security, wealth, and opportunities that come with that name. Sheila's turn was the most shocking. Representing herself, she stepped forward, her eyes gleaming. I may not have a perfect past, she began, earning audible scoffs from the courtroom, but I know what love is. I know what it means to protect a child from a cruel world. And that's exactly what I intend to do. The tension in the room was electric. Finn's gaze never wavered from the tiny bassinet in the corner, where the baby slept peacefully, unaware that her future was being fought over like a prize. Steffi squeezed his hand, whispering, "No matter what happens, you did the right thing." Bill sat rigid, his jaw clenched, his pride a fragile mask hiding a flicker of guilt. And Sheila, she smiled faintly, knowing that even if she lost, her mere presence had already destabilized everything. When the gavel finally came down, the judge's voice was firm but compassionate. Given the circumstances, and the best interests of the child, temporary custody will be granted to Dr. John Finnegan, with supervised visitation rights extended to Mr. Spencer and Ms. Carter. The courtroom erupted, Bill furious, Sheila seething, Finn frozen in disbelief. He had won, for now. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed as Steffi and Finn stepped into the sunlight, the baby cradled in Finn's arms. Reporters shouted questions. How does it feel to win? Will the Spencers appeal? But Finn barely heard them. He looked down at the baby, her tiny fingers curling around his, and whispered, "You're safe now. I promise." Behind them, Bill watched from the steps, his expression unreadable. He turned to Katie, his voice low. "This isn't over." She sighed, placing a hand on his arm. "Let it go, Bill. Let someone else be the hero for once." But he just shook his head, his eyes locked on the departing couple. "I don't lose, Katie. Not when it comes to family." And somewhere in the shadows, Sheila smiled, a quiet, dangerous smile that promised the story was far from over. "We'll see about that," she murmured. Because in Los Angeles, nothing stayed settled for long. Luna Nozawa may have died in prison, but the chaos she left behind was only just beginning. As the sun dipped behind the skyline, painting the city in blood-red light, three families prepared for the next battle, a war not of love or legacy, but of redemption, revenge, and the fight for one small life that had already changed everything. The days following Luna's tragic death in prison unfolded like a dark symphony of grief, accusation, and desperation. Los Angeles, so often bathed in the golden glow of Californian sunlight, seemed muted now, shadowed by the weight of a scandal that no one could fully process. Luna's passing wasn't just another headline, it was a seismic event that sent shockwaves through every corner of the Forrester, Spencer, and Finnegan families. Her death left behind not only unanswered questions, but a fragile, innocent life, her newborn baby, whose existence would become the epicenter of a new war. At the hospital, where Luna had once been rushed after the birth, Finn stood by the neonatal intensive care unit window, staring blankly at the small incubator where Luna's baby lay. The tiny child, a little girl, had inherited Luna's delicate features and a hint of her quiet strength. Her small fingers twitched as if reaching for a world she didn't yet understand, one that had already proven far too cruel. Finn's reflection stared back at him from the glass, tired, hollow, and filled with guilt. He had been a doctor sworn to preserve life, yet he couldn't save Luna when it mattered most. The autopsy had revealed grim truths. Luna's death had been preventable. Neglect in the prison's infirmary, a lack of timely medical care, and a brutal altercation days before her passing had led to internal bleeding. The state tried to paint it as an unfortunate accident, but Finn knew better. He wanted justice, not just for Luna, but for the baby who had been born into chaos. And yet, justice wasn't the only thing Finn wanted. Deep down, he wanted the child. He wanted to raise her, protect her, and give her the life Luna never got to finish building. But he wasn't the only one. Across the city, Bill Spencer paced the floors of his mansion, the storm inside him raging louder than the one brewing over the Pacific. He had just learned of Luna's death through a late-night call, and it hit him like a freight train. His connection to Luna had been complicated, a tangle of guilt, affection, and paternal regret. He had discovered too late that he might be the father of her baby, and that realization now clawed at him with unbearable force. He couldn't erase the image of her behind bars, broken and alone, while he had been out in the world, free and powerful. He had failed her, just as he had failed so many before her. "Get my lawyers," Bill barked at Justin Barber, his longtime right-hand man. His voice was hoarse, trembling with restrained rage. "I don't care what it takes, I'm getting that baby out of the system. Luna's child belongs with family. With me." But before Bill could even file the papers, SHEILA Carter, ever the storm's eye, made her move. When she appeared at Finn's door, he felt the familiar dread rise in his throat. Her eyes glinted with an unsettling calm, the kind that masked 1,000 manipulations. "She was my son's patient," SHEILA began softly, her tone eerily maternal. "My granddaughter. That baby has my blood in her veins, Finn. Don't you think she deserves to be with family? With someone who understands what it's like to be hated for things out of your control?" Finn clenched his jaw. "You are not part of that baby's life, SHEILA. Luna trusted me, not you. She wanted her daughter to be safe, and the last person who could ever offer that is you." SHEILA's expression hardened for a moment, then softened again. "You're a doctor, son. You believe in second chances. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the chance to love that child like Luna never got to." The tension was unbearable. SHEILA's words slithered into his conscience, but Finn pushed them away. He could still hear Luna's final words echoing in his mind, whispered from the hospital bed before she lost consciousness for the last time. "Please, make sure she's loved. Not used." Finn had promised, and he would die before breaking it. But as the custody battle escalated, that promise was tested in ways he never imagined. Bill's legal team moved fast, powerful, ruthless, and determined to use every inch of the law to pry the child from state custody. SHEILA, meanwhile, took her fight to the public, weaponizing the media with crocodile tears and twisted stories about Luna's mistreatment. She painted herself as a grandmother wronged by a corrupt system, appealing to those who saw her as a victim rather than a villain. Within days, the courthouse became a war zone of emotions and accusations. Reporters lined the steps, flashing cameras like vultures circling a carcass. Inside, Finn sat at one table, his lawyer by his side, his hands trembling slightly as he watched Bill and SHEILA take their seats opposite him. The baby, Luna's baby, wasn't there, but her presence was everywhere. Every word, every glance, every tear revolved around her. Bill's opening statement was direct, filled with conviction. Luna Nozawa was a victim of injustice. She died because the system failed her. I may not have known her long, but I know she loved her child. I intend to make sure that child never spends a single day wondering if she's wanted or loved. She is wanted. She is loved. And she belongs with me." SHEILA followed, her tone dripping with false sincerity. "I've made mistakes," she said, her eyes glistening as if on cue, "but haven't we all? I want to give that little girl what Luna never had: stability, love, family. I want to make things right, once and for all." Finn rose last, his heart pounding. He wasn't a man of speeches, but when he spoke, the room went silent. "Luna trusted me," he said softly, his voice breaking. "She didn't have anyone else. She wanted her daughter to have a chance, not in power, not in publicity, but in peace. I don't want her to grow up in a mansion or under cameras. I want her to grow up knowing kindness, not chaos. I'm not fighting for her because of blood or guilt. I'm fighting because it's what Luna would have wanted." His words struck something deep in the judge, but the battle was far from over. Bill's influence ran deep, and SHEILA's manipulations sowed doubt everywhere. Allegations surfaced, Whispers that Finn had falsified Luna's medical reports to protect himself, that SHEILA was being unfairly targeted because of her past, that Bill's sudden paternal instinct was less about love and more about control. The courtroom became a battlefield where truth and lies were indistinguishable. Outside, Hope, Steffi, and Ridge watched from the gallery, their own loyalties torn apart. Hope sympathized with Finn and the child. Steffi, protective as ever, wanted her husband to focus on their own family. Ridge was consumed with the guilt of how far this tragedy had spiraled from the Forrester orbit. As weeks dragged into months, the baby, named Luna Grace by the state, grew stronger in foster care. Finn visited her whenever he could, whispering stories about her mother, about the light she carried in her eyes. Bill sent gifts, lavish and unnecessary, while SHEILA appeared at visitation hearings uninvited, her obsession deepening by the day. The breaking point came when SHEILA tried to take matters into her own hands. One stormy night, she broke into the foster home, desperate to rescue her granddaughter. The act backfired horribly. The police caught her, and the footage of her being dragged away in cuffs became a media spectacle. Her face, of wild, defiant, desperate, plastered across every screen in Los Angeles. Finn, watching from home, felt a bitter mix of relief and sorrow. He knew this would destroy her chances in court, but it also reminded him just how dangerous she truly was. In the aftermath, the custody decision finally came down. The judge's gavel fell like a thunderclap, primary custody awarded to Dr. John Finnegan, with visitation rights for Bill pending further review. SHEILA was barred from all contact indefinitely. The courtroom erupted, Bill in outrage, SHEILA in tears, Finn in silent disbelief. Outside, reporters swarmed him with questions, but Finn didn't speak. He walked straight to the hospital, straight to Luna Grace's room. When he lifted her into his arms, a warmth spread through him that felt almost holy. For the first time since Luna's death, he felt a sense of peace, fragile, but real. He whispered softly, "You're safe now, Luna. Both of you." Yet even as he said the words, a shadow lingered. He knew Bill wouldn't give up. He knew SHEILA would find a way to escape, as she always did. And he knew the world had a way of turning even the purest intentions into tragedy. But for that moment, in the quiet hum of the hospital room, with the baby's small hand wrapped around his finger, he allowed himself to believe that Luna's story wasn't over.